Hey guys, today I want to give you my number one tip for recording sounds. Now, this mostly applies to sound effects, but it can also apply to dialogue, music, pretty much anything that you're going to capture. And I've recorded a lot for film, television, commercials, everything in between. I've always kept this in mind, so by doing the same, you'll be able to get much more cinematic and much more realistic sounding audio. Before we get started, if you enjoy these videos and you want to support my channel, head over to alexknickerbocker.com. I've got a PayPal donation link as well as a bunch of sound effects libraries that I've curated from my personal collection for your royalty-free use. They come with industry standard metadata and documentation so you can find what you're looking for easily, and I'll be adding more as I can, so don't forget to check back. Okay, so the most important tool for anyone who's editing sound effects is, of course, a library of sounds that they can pull from that's as versatile as possible to cover everything you could possibly imagine that might happen in picture. But even in the largest sound libraries used on the biggest feature films and television shows out there are going to be limitations. You know, maybe that explosion is too big, or those ones are too small. Maybe the cars that are recorded are a little bit too aggressive or not aggressive enough. Maybe the doors, those are really common ones. Maybe the doors are too loud or too heavy, or maybe they're not heavy enough. Now, you could talk forever about how to record pretty much anything and everything under the sun, but I think the biggest takeaway from any time that I've spent recording has been one thing to keep in mind, and that is perspective. Now, what does perspective actually mean? Well, one of the most common mistakes that I hear in a lot of recordings is people will get their recorders or their microphones really close to their sound source, trying to get it clean and isolated. But at the end of the day, your ears don't hear that way. You're not, right next to a foot every time it steps. You're not right next to a car every time it squeals its brakes or anything like that. Perspective is the idea that you should try and emulate how you would hear something with your microphones as you're capturing a sound. Foley is probably the best example of where this comes into play. All those little hand pats and cloth movements and footsteps and cup pickups, that kind of thing. You want a little bit of perspective because your ears aren't right next to those things as they're happening in real life. So putting about 2 or 3 feet of distance in between your microphone and your sound source is going to sound a lot more natural and right than if you were to just try and close mic it in an effort to get it really clean. Another great example is city atmospheres. Take the average street corner. You've got cars and trucks and horns and brake squeals and tires all over the place, and it sounds really sharp and harsh. Some of the best backgrounds and ambiences that I've heard have been recorded from maybe 3 or 4 stories up, and they're getting kind of the wash of the city reflecting off of a bunch of buildings, and it sort of diffuses everything. So naturally, just by recording in a different location, all of a sudden you don't have frequencies that might cloud dialogue or music. You don't have a whole lot of really harsh stuff that you're going to have to EQ out later. And again, just by changing that perspective, you've got a much more useful sound. Now, obviously that requires some experimentation and a little bit of experience, but the bottom line is if you think about how a sound is going to get used in your final product, you'll be better able to make some choices on perspective as you're recording your sounds, and it's going to be much more useful all the way through. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for the next time you're out recording. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments, of course. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'm over on Instagram at AXK, so come follow me over there. And as always, thanks for watching.